The Batman 2022 was an incredible movie, in my opinion. So, in this video, we are going to be talking about what is next in the Batman franchise. So let's get started. It has already been sort of confirmed that Mr. Freeze will probably be the next villain for the next Batman movie. So, we're just gonna roll with that. So, for my little put together, Batman is going to be going up against Mr. Freeze. So, let's get started. Now, just to be warned, there will be a few spoilers for the Batman if you haven't seen it yet, so there's your spoiler warning. So, it starts off with Mr. Freeze's backstory, and it's gonna be sort of like it does in the comics. So, Mr. Freeze was taking his wife Nora Freeze to work, but a riot started to go in, red alarms started going off, everyone was rushing everywhere, and Nora got caught up in it. Freeze tried to and find her, but he couldn't see her anywhere. But when he did finally see her, she was being pushed into a table full of chemicals. Freeze ran there as quick as he could, and as he was holding her in his arms, he just saw Batman standing there. So, now this part of the story will take place from the first movie, where Riddler's flooded it, and that's what's caused the riot. So, Mr. Freeze is filled with hatred against the Batman, and then we later find out that those chemicals that Nora got pushed into gave her cancer. But now let's check in on Batman. So Batman is warming up to Gotham City. He's not as brutal, and he's being more Bruce Wayne, as we saw in the first movie, how he was distant from Bruce Wayne, like he was only Batman. And we get to see that when he stops a bank robbery. So as he's stopping it, as we saw in the first movie, or even in the trailers, he's very brutal with his villains. He doesn't pull his punches. But here we can see him sort of pulling his punches, going more easier on them. But when he's finished and the Gotham police show up, all that's next to the villains is a remote for Commissioner Gordon. Now, I have taken this idea from the 2004 The Batman, but I just loved this idea so much that I just needed to incorporate it in this. So, yeah. Then we get to see how Batman's improved his Batcave. He's working on more of his Batcar to make it look a little bit more sleeker, as we have seen in previous iterations of the vehicle. And it all just looks amazing. It actually does look like the Batcave that we have started to see in the comics and in the old movies. But then something happens. We find out that Mr. Freeze has quitted his job because of the accident that happened to Nora. And he's not doing well with money because Nora can't go to work. He's trying to get jobs. Nothing. So, with his hatred over Batman, he builds his freeze ray. Now, I know in the comics and some movies and TV shows, it has said that Mr. Freeze built his freeze ray just to freeze Nora. But I'm not going to use that in this. So, Mr. Freeze built it to get revenge over Batman because he thinks that it was Batman's fault if Batman could have saved her. So, after that happens, we find out that Mr. Freeze hasn't been able to pay for Nora's medication. Now, this is getting a little dark, but I expect that the next Batman movie is going to be a 15 rating. So, if there is any little kids, then I would suggest sending them out. So, Nora gets put into hospital, which Freeze is furious by, because she has got 24-hour surveillance by the Gotham Police Department, everything. So this is where Mr. Freeze makes his first attack. So, he breaks into the previous lab that he worked in. Whoever got in his way, he just froze. And then he got a hold of a suit that made sure he couldn't get frozen. I'm not really sure if these suits really exist. They probably do, but anyway. But then he makes an anonymous call to the police, which he knows what he's doing in this situation. So basically what his plan is he's going to get all the police to go to the lab. So they all come rushing. Everyone who's watching Nora comes rushing. Commissioner Gordon clicks the remote that gave this. Now, the aim of this remote is so Batman can be alerted anonymous. So say if he couldn't be alerted because of a big bat signal and he didn't want anyone to see him. Now, so as Freeze is walking down the hallway, like super scary, like, and when I say, you know, one villain, like in Scream, when he's walking down the hallway and it looks scary, like that. Someone emerges from the shadows and we find out that someone is Batman. We all think that Batman's just going to go to the lab, but he's smarter than that. He goes the opposite. So there is a big fight against them. Batman loses this first fight, but it is not over. And the only reason he lost is because Batman's foot got trapped in ice. So, let's go to our story mountain and just check up on everything. So, to recap, Mr. Freeze is furious with Batman. Nora has got cancer. Nora's been taken away from Freeze, so Freeze is just going downhill. Batman's losing fight with Freeze. And that's the start of our story mountain, which I am going to keep on going. You know, so like we could see what's going on. So, let's carry on. When Freeze gets to Norma's hospital room, he takes her. And he takes her to this abandoned woods house thing. Which, that was the first thing that just came to mind, because I always think they're really creepy. Especially when I watched it in a Scooby-Doo movie once, not sure which one. So, this is when his plan finally comes to freeze Nora, and he succeeds. And as we check up in the Batcave, Batman's trying to figure out where Freeze is. He can't wrap his head around it. Now I know what you all think, and all but in the first movie he was a full-on detective solving riddles like that. But Mr. Freeze, he's hid his tracks. He doesn't want to be seen. So, and that's when I think it's good. But then, we see that people all around Gotham is being taken left, right and centre. And if they're no good, they get left in ice cubes. Not in a scary way, just in ice cubes. So then, as Batman is going on his own private investigations, Alfred decides to take a shoot in it. And this is when we actually, the movie actually transfers over to like a bit of an Alfred section so we can really get. Now, I'm not sure how Alfred tracks down Freeze and how Batman didn't, but again, Alfred has had more experience than Batman, considering this would just be his like year 4, so he's still not there with, you know, the most skilled. He's gotten better at fighting and crime solving, but he's not right there as we know Batman. So Alfred finds where Freeze is keeping Nora. He goes there, he doesn't tell anyone where he's going, and they have the most epic, and when I say epic, I mean epic battle between Alfred and Freeze. Now, again, Freeze does take down Alfred, but he damages Freeze's suit and his ray gun, meaning his ray gun is malfunctioning. He ties Alfred up, and when I say ties, I don't mean like in rope. I think like what he could do is like ice him to the wall. I don't know, something like that. Which again, I am taking a lot of my inspiration from the 2004 Batman, how Alfred did go on his own private little investigation and he got caught, only by that was the Penguin, but anyway. And all the old comic books, and my most favourite, which if you haven't watched this movie, you really have to, Batman Sub-Zero. It tells a really emotional story. But anyway, let's get back to our story mountain. So, to recap, Batman can't figure anything out. He's trying, people have been going missing, and then if they're no longer needed, they go back to Gotham City in ice cubes. Alfred's going on his own little private investigation. And Mr. Freeze is now, he's out for vengeance. Which that is a reference to the first movie, but anyway. Now, Batman realises that Alfred's missing. He doesn't know where he's gone. But he does find out because he put a tracker in his phone. We get a cool scene of Batman hopping into his Batmobile. It's still a little rusty, but it's definitely improved from the first movie. Somehow, I don't know, that Batmobile's awesome. But anyway, Alfred starts to call Batman in the Batmobile. We get a dark and eerie shot of Batman. But instead of Alfred talking, it's Mr. Freeze. And we can hear Alfred talking in the background. Mr. Wayne, or Bruce, or whatever Alfred calls him, don't come. And then we hear Freeze saying, Bruce Wayne, eh? Or something like that. Batman arrives at the old cabin in the woods. There is an awesome fight, but during that fight, the cabin starts to light on fire. and Nora is melting. Now I know that seems a little silly, but I bet if this really did turn into a live action movie, I do think they could make it look really cool. But anyway, Nora's melting. Freeze tries to save her, but he gets caught on fire a little bit. His suit saves his life. While Batman's saving Alfred, Freeze is trying to save Nora, but he can't because of the fire. Now, Batman goes to save Freeze, considering he's been knocked out from all the fumes and flames. Alfred saves Nora, still in an ice cube, just melted a little bit. They all run outside and watch the house go up in flames. Then we get a montage of everything with Batman narrating in the background of scientists trying to cure Nora and all the other patients. Batman seeing Commissioner Gordon, getting all the updates and all of that. Alfred going to the doctor because he was injured in the fight, but the last scene in the movie, which I do really hope that they do this bit in the next movie and continue it on, where the villains that Batman puts in Arkham start making alliances. So we see Mr. Freeze in the cafeteria. He sits down, but then we don't see their faces, just see two figures sitting down with them. And one says, which in my head this would be the Joker, wanna make friends. And that's how the movie ends. So I hope you did enjoy this video. Check out some other videos. If you could please like, share and subscribe, and if you want, leave a comment. And I will be doing some more of these videos. I'll be doing one on Spider-Man, Moon Knight, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So subscribe for that, and I'll see you all in the next video.